Aloha Hawaii, this is your state representative Elijah Pierick giving you a pre-recorded message from Dallas, Texas. So I'm here at the Pro-Family Network of legislators where we've got guest speakers like Glenn Beck and David Barton, and I've met an interesting man named Matt. He's a senator from Arkansas, and he's going to give us a little bit of insight on what's going on in Arkansas and things going on with gender ideologies and how to convert a state from being liberal to conservative. So welcome to the show, Matt.
Thank you, Elijah. It's great to meet you, and this is a fantastic conference. We're glad that you could be here from the great state of Hawaii, and it's always encouraging to meet the great young new leaders that we are seeing elected around the country who are leading in the areas of faith and values and trying to just do the right thing in their states and for the people that they represent. Do you want me to go straight into the great things happening in Arkansas? So as I was speaking to Elijah about a little bit of the history that we had in Arkansas. Arkansas was a one-party state for 146 years, and the Democrats had complete control, and they basically gave the Republican legislators a card table where they could sit in the corner, and if they ever needed them for something, they'd let them know. And starting in 2010 and moving all the way into 2014, we were able to change that, and it came from people like Elijah who are willing to stand up for what's right, even when in many cases they're standing alone. And I know that's not the case in Hawaii. I know Elijah has a lot of support, but that's how it starts. And in Arkansas, we now have 18 Democrats out of 100 in the House and 6 Democrats out of 35 in the Senate. And so we can pass just about any legislation we want. And of course, with the election of our new governor, Sarah Sanders, we have a powerful conservative voice in Arkansas and somebody who's willing to make the tough decisions even when confronted with challenges from special interests and different groups to do what's right for the people of Arkansas and to make sure that our families are protected, that our schools are strong and doing what they're supposed to be doing, and that the institutions of marriage and our churches are receiving the support and backing that they need. And we're in an encouraging place, and we're excited to see where the future is going to take us.
Well, that's awesome. Sarah Sanders, your governor, has done some amazing things. I've read online that, and also been emailed and phone called and sent direct messages on my social media saying, Elijah, make Hawaii more like Arkansas. So some people are definitely into what you guys are doing, specifically about not letting certain Chinese companies own property in Arkansas. I know that her kids used chalk and drew this beautiful cross on her driveway, and some people said, take down the cross off of your own driveway that your own kids drew freely using their First Amendment right of religion and expression. And she's like, no, we're going to keep the cross on the sidewalk. So good for her having that strong backing. I remember reading her biography this year about her, time as the press secretary for Trump, and then ran for governor and won for Arkansas. You mentioned that in Arkansas before, like for 100 and something years, there was mostly a majority of liberals or Democrats in charge. Why do you think they did so well for so long, the Democrats?
Well, that's a loaded question, Elijah. So for many, many years, there were many things that even Democrats and Republicans agreed on, whether it was the Second Amendment or the strength and value that families represent, the nuclear family represented to our society as a whole, national defense, and there were just so many issues that we could see eye to eye on. And we saw, especially around the time of 2010 when Barack Obama was elected, that the Democrat Party, whether it was taken over by left-wing ideologues or if they'd always been in there but they'd just been the minority in the Democrat Party, we saw where, as Sarah Sanders in her State of the Union address response said this year, that the people of Arkansas and the people of America really get to choose between what we consider as normal, down-home American values and crazy. And they have just lost their ever-loving minds. Yeah. And we see so many things that are evil being called good, and so many things that are good being called evil. And so we've got these people that are They're just, in Arkansas, there were many Democrats who could not get elected today, who were elected for many, many years. And they could not get elected today as Democrats, and one of the things we've seen is a lot of the Democrats that were in office have changed to be Republicans. And there are some cases where they're not necessarily Republicans, they just don't want to get beat. But there are many, many cases where they have realized that the values and the principles that they hold and espouse are no longer principles of the Democrat Party. And, whether it is the idea that marriage is one man and one woman for life, or that if you're born a boy, you stay a boy, and you're born a girl, you stay a girl, that teenage boys shouldn't be dressing in the same locker rooms as women. There are so many issues where it just seems like the left has gone so far off the deep end that the Democrat Party of today doesn't even resemble the Democrat Party of 10 years ago.
Wow. Definitely things have changed. You mentioned that you met Mike Gabbert, one of our senators from Hawaii last year, and he's a gem in the Democratic Party because if not everybody knows it, I'll retell it, but he was a Republican before, and then he wanted his bills to pass for progress for his district.
Absolutely.
And so he switched to the Democratic Party, and his bills are passing now. We've only had, I think, about 2 Republican bills pass in Hawaii in the past decade, and those bills weren't substantially conservative. They were just like, okay, that's good to know that bill passed. Good for those bills passing. Good job on the Republican authors, but they didn't change the world. So you talked before about boys staying boys and girls staying girls. In Hawaii, most of us are conservatives. We understand that Eo, or God, is our creator, and that he made us male and female. And if we rewind the clock in Hawaii back to around 400 AD, when people from around the Fiji area came up to Oahu and Hawaii and elsewhere from the Pacific, they observed the religion of Eo, like one true God, one originator, one supreme being. And I think around maybe might get this date a little bit off, but I think around like 900 or 800 AD, Tahitians came over and they brought over the kapu system with a whole bunch of other I would say bad practices. Like if you, I think, go into the chief's shadow, or if you eat the chief's banana, you get the death penalty, and other things like that. And they also brought in the mahu system, or like LGBTQ or homosexuality. So it's not the original Hawaiian culture to practice mahu or LGBTQ. So just a little update on that. If you guys want to hear more about that, please research and read all of Daniel Kakawa's books. Dr. Daniel Kakawa, they're on Amazon. The first book's called Perpetuated in Righteousness, and so forth. You can get the history there. But let's talk about Arkansas. If you're just now joining us on the radio, this is your State Representative Elijah Pierick interviewing Senator Matt McKee from Arkansas. And he had a unique connection, if you will, with LGBTQ. Can you share that with us?
Well, Elijah, 2 years ago, legislators in Arkansas saw fit to ban transgender procedures on minors, whether it be the pharmaceutical castration or the surgical practices that we've seen becoming more and more promoted and widespread around the country. And unfortunately, that bill is tied up in court. And so what we were trying to do this past legislative session was make it possible for individuals who suffer physical or emotional harm from these procedures. We wanted to lengthen the amount of time that they would be able to sue the doctors that perform those procedures on them. And so in Judiciary Committee, we had several gentlemen in dresses who made it their goal, seemingly, to convince us that there were no possible negative side effects from these procedures, which I think you can see from all of the European countries who have decided that they're no longer going to perform these procedures or take part in these practices is not true. But after about 2 hours of testimony from gentlemen in dresses and their discussions about how important their testimony was because of their lived experiences, I wanted to get to the heart of how committed they were to this transition process. And I think you and I can agree that whether you have surgery or go through the pharmaceutical processes, you can't change a boy into a girl, and you can't change a girl into a boy. And what we've got are some very serious mental challenges and mental problems that we need to be helping these people with. But to get to the heart of that point, I just asked the gentleman if he had a penis. And I'm a very simple individual, grew up in the country, and to me, gender and sex is a very simple issue, and it comes down to your chromosomes and biology, and it's something that we've understood since the dawn of time, is that gentlemen are born with penises and girls are not. And the world exploded at that point. Elijah, a trans activist tweeted my phone number and a very limited clip of that meeting, and let's just say that while they have a very limited vocabulary, they're very creative in how they string those words together.
They meaning the person who
the trans activists. Okay. And so I garnered quite a bit of attention from that, and that was never my goal going into the legislature. I just want to represent the people that live in District 6. And but I learned a great deal, and what I learned is that they cannot afford to have individuals ask questions like that or speak the truth, because that's really what it comes down to. Because the average everyday Americans, whether they live in Arkansas or Hawaii, they know the truth down to their core. But the propaganda has been so successful in making us question, or even just making us fear saying what we know to be true. Mm-hmm. And we were able to pass that legislation, and we were very proud of that in Arkansas, because what it really comes down to is protecting our kids and protecting our family. And if they're able to, once an individual has been transitioned, whether it be pharmaceutically or surgically, it's a permanent deal. And we've got little girls running around now who will never be able to have babies, much less breastfeed them. We've got young men who will never be able to be a father, and I think that's incredibly sad. And so that's our goal in Arkansas, is to protect those kids and those families.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you for wanting to protect the kids and the family. You mentioned that when you joined the Arkansas legislature as a senator, it wasn't your plan to have national attention or to really be at the tip of the spear when it came to protecting biblical gender. When I first ran for office, I had no ambition, I had no belief that I was going to win, but God did a miracle and I won. And after I won, I took tours of our schools, like most representatives do, and one of our schools had lots of LGBTQ flags, kind of like at most of the doorposts around the building. And so I asked the principal, could we take these down? I think they're promoting an environment that might not be the best for kids. Like, how about let's go to school to learn how to read and write and learn about, the stars versus, what gender should I be today? And so the principal chose to keep the flags up there. I asked if I could make a video and then let the community know about the video. She said, yeah, it's fine. She gave me 1, 2, 3 business cards with her business number and her email address, made the video, and it eventually got some traction. Sounds like what your story did. Somebody tweeted what you asked in the committee about the guy. Does he have an extremity that's in alignment with being a male? So that brings me back to when I was campaigning. I was knocking on doors, and one guy saw me doing that, and he rode his bicycle up to me as I was campaigning, and he pulled his brakes. He was kind of like, he biked up right next to me, like he had a very direct question, and he said, I've got one question for you. And I said, sure, what is it? And he said, out of all the politicians in the world right now, some are scared, some are brave, some tell the truth, some lie. We need people with integrity, so I have one question for you. I was like, great, hit me with it. He said, what is a woman? And so it was funny, his 2 kids are also trailing him on their bikes, and I simply said, well, a woman is someone who has a vagina. Mm-hmm. And he said, thank you, and he shook my hand and he said, I'll be voting for you.
It's very simple.
It is
very simple.
Yeah,
it's very simple. People just know it inherently, and it's something that's so simple that I think it's got so many people frazzled a little bit, because they know it's simple, and yet everything they see in the media and everything they hear from their social media and all this, it puts doubt, and we shouldn't operate our lives off of doubt. Mm-hmm. We operate our lives from a position of faith and of strength. And sometimes it's very simple, and you were exactly right in your answer. You just tell the truth.
Yeah.
And we'll let the cards fall where they may, but that's something I appreciate about you, and I've learned about you real quick, is you're just going to tell the truth.
Well, praise God for telling the truth. When I was reading Sarah Sanders' biography, she seemed to be such a woman of faith, and I've met some other representatives and senators from Arkansas. Tell us, how does faith infuse itself inside your legislator, and how does that reflect the people of Arkansas?
Well, Elijah, my faith is, number one, it's my foundation. People talk consistently today about the loss of common sense, and we spoke a little bit about it earlier. Common sense is nothing less than Christian morality and wisdom. And wisdom only comes from one place, and that's the Word of God. And as we as a society have become farther and farther divorced from the Word of God and from our Christian morals and foundations, that common sense has dwindled. And so as a legislator, number one, I feel it's every individual's Christian duty to take part and participate in our civic government. And so as a Christian man, I believe it's my responsibility to protect my family, but it's also my responsibility to show them that we're responsible for the society that we live in, and that one individual can make a difference and can change things. And so as a Christian, I just look forward to, number one, being told, "Well done, good and faithful servant," if that's how it works out, which I'm faithful it will. But I want to do everything I can to make this a better place for our kids and for our families, and to make sure that they're protected.
That's awesome. Wanting to protect people is definitely a value that many people in Hawaii aspire to and ascribe to. If you're just now joining us on the radio, you're listening to your state representative, Elijah Pierick, coming to you from Dallas, Texas, pre-recording this on my cell phone in the patio of our hotel with Senator Matt McKee from Arkansas. So we're participating in this pro-family conference, and as I was talking to him, he said, "Hey, do you know Mike Gabbard?" I said, "Yeah, I do." And so we talked more. I heard more about his story, and I said, "Hey, I've got a radio show on Monday. Can we pre-record this on my phone?" He's like, "Yeah, let's do it." So that's what's going on in this pre-recorded time. If you're in Hawaii right now on Monday, driving your car on H1 traffic, or let's say you're in Maui or Kauai or Big Island, know that the Republican caucus cares about you, and we want to prioritize you. So you can let us know what you think by just Googling Hawaii House GOP and emailing the contact info, and our caucus will receive information from you. We'll receive your input, and we'd love to hear from you. So back to Senator Mike McKee from Arkansas. What are some of the bills that you introduced this year?
So this was my very first session in the Senate, and I was lucky, I believe I was blessed to have 12 years of experience in county government before I was elected senator. And so I think that allowed me to understand the process a little bit better than maybe somebody coming in off the street. This session I worked on several bills. Some of them that I sponsored had to do with just county government and making it more efficient and transparent. Other bills I worked on dealt with declaring timber is a very big industry in Arkansas.
Wood?
Yeah, wood, and we could actually harvest 50 million tons more than we currently harvest.
Wow.
And have it be sustainable. So one of the bills I sponsored and passed defined biofuel as carbon neutral. That's a very big niche industry, and they're doing it overseas, defining biofuel as carbon neutral and in surrounding states. So we thought that was important to give the industry in Arkansas that little push. Also worked on making sure that homeschooled kids that participate in extracurricular activities in the government schools just had access to activities of their choice. We had situations where superintendents were stopping homeschool kids from participating in activities at other schools if they didn't offer it in their district. So the kids live in a school district, their school doesn't offer an activity, and the superintendent there had to say yes to them going to another school to participate in that activity, and they were saying no. And so we passed a law saying that they had, and that kind of frustrated the superintendents and some of the people in the public school system. But again, it comes down to kids and our families and giving them the opportunities that they need and that they want, so that they can be prepared and thrive in their lives. And parents have that responsibility, and they take that responsibility more seriously than anybody and that is to make sure that their kids are prepared and they're getting the resources and the classes and the activities that their kids need. So those were some of the ones that I'm proud of. I had other ones that I can't really remember right now. That's been a little while ago. I've slept since then. But we're in a very good place in Arkansas with the governor that we have. We have the most conservative legislature that we've ever had. And I think what Elijah said about wanting to hear from the constituency and the people that live on the islands, it's so important, and it's so important that you get to know your state representative. Elijah is just a regular guy, right? His mother would probably argue with that. She would say he's incredible. and I think you're very blessed to have him as a state representative. But we're just regular guys, and we're just trying to do what's right. And that was one of the things I learned in Arkansas, is that there are just a lot of people in the legislature that are just trying to do the right thing. They're just trying to represent the people in their districts. And we don't always agree, and we don't always come down on the same side of how we do those things. But there's just a lot of good people that are trying to do the right thing. And there are those out there that are trying to game the system and take advantage for their own personal gain, but the majority, I believe, are just trying to do the right thing.
That's great. Thank you, Matt. So he mentioned that people are just people, and that's so true. I'm a human being. If you meet the governor or the mayor of any of our 4 counties, they're just people. The mayor of Honolulu, he's a very nice guy. Some people don't love his policies, some people do. But if you meet him at a personal level, he's a nice guy. And it's the same with our governor. Even though he was the lieutenant governor during COVID, and he kind of led the charge in, I believe, shutting our state down, and I believe worsening our mental health crisis by, when you lock somebody in a room, that's bad for them. They need sunlight, they need fresh oxygen, they need socialization, and when you isolate them, that's not good. When you put a mask on them and you limit their oxygen flow, that's not good. So even though he says he's a doctor, I mean, we got to work on the mental health aspect. So maybe he pursue a license in mental health from the DCCA. But kind of transitioning from being a human, not transitioning, excuse me, that came out wrong. But switching conversation topics from being a human, let's talk about Hawaii for a minute. So if you live in the west side of Oahu, there's a lot of traffic. So how do we fix the traffic? Well, we can introduce a resolution to basically allow for traffic going westbound to also be driving on the eastbound traffic lane. So basically flip that zipper lane on west and east side. And that's an email I got this week. There was a concerned resident who emailed me saying, hey, you got to be more inclusive, you got to have good leadership, why haven't you fixed the traffic? And so I responded to his email this week, said, hey, I introduced a resolution to fix the traffic with this. Basically, my colleagues are majority members, Democrats, and anything that comes from a red office, they basically throw it in the trash. And so that bill didn't pass, that resolution didn't pass. But that doesn't matter. I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to keep fighting for West Side. I'm going to keep fighting for Oahu, keep fighting for the state of Hawaii. And so as I fight for Hawaii, I know that Matt is fighting for Arkansas, along with the governor. So what would you say is more unique about Sarah Sanders than your previous governor?
That is a loaded question, but it's a great question. Our previous governor, Asa Hutchinson, who most recently was running for president, I think he was down around 1%, so I don't think he got very far. I don't think he'll hear me say this, but that's okay if he does. But unfortunately, Asa struggled through COVID, and I will give him credit for not shutting Arkansas down to the extent that some of the blue states did. But there was still a lot of anxiety. There were still a lot of requirements that made it very difficult for businesses, made it very difficult for individuals and families. They did close the schools for quite a while. And as you said, that in many cases, that did not lead to the betterment of our health, whether mentally or physically, for the majority of people in Arkansas. But I will give him credit for not shutting down like other states did. But I will also say this, that according to legislators that I've spoken to that were in office when he was governor, he was one of the biggest impediments to getting good conservative legislation passed.
Wow.
In Arkansas. And you can take the example of the SAFE Act, which we talked about a little bit ago, which he vetoed.
Which is what?
That was the law that outlawed transgender surgeries on minors. And it was just very unfortunate, and I'm not sure what the motivations there were. But as I said, it's pretty common sense stuff. And our Governor Sarah Sanders is a proponent and a driving force on a lot of the things that you'll see coming forward in Arkansas over the next several years. She has already, with the help of the legislature, transformed education in Arkansas. And we now have 100% school choice, where the money will follow the child. We've banned things like CRT and critical race theory being taught in the classroom, and just made sure that parents have options. We believe that the number one thing that can change education in our country is introducing a little competition, making sure that schools, whatever industry you're in, you deal with competition, and it forces you to innovate. It forces you to get better at what you do, to find new avenues and new methods to accomplish what we're trying to accomplish. And just like any bureaucracy we have in government, there comes a time when it becomes this big bloated ship, and it takes a while to turn that ship. And so we're excited that we're in the process of turning that ship in Arkansas, so that we will be rated very highly in our nation, if not number one, with the steps that we've taken to change in Arkansas. And that could not have happened without Sarah Sanders. We're also reforming criminal justice, making sure that if you go to jail in Arkansas, you serve 80% of your sentence minimum, right? Because up until now, many times individuals were getting out of jail having only served 15% of what they were sentenced to serve. And so it was to the point where criminals would laugh if they were sent to prison.
Wow. Because
they knew that they were going to be out. And part of that was us not making the investment, over the past several decades in new prison beds. And unfortunately, we see ourselves in a society where, lawlessness is becoming more and more prevalent. And individuals, whether it's just because they don't understand right from wrong, or they've just made a choice not to do what's right, we see the need for more law enforcement. We see the need for more prison space. And the reason government does that is to protect our families, to protect your rights, to live your life safely, and to be prosperous in whatever business or career you choose. And if government does not do that, we see situations like you have in a lot of the major cities, whether it's San Francisco or Portland, where where individuals who have broken the law are not held accountable, and they know that they can do it with impunity now. And you see businesses start shutting down, you see families moving out, and that's not good for anybody. So in Arkansas, we've really fought to just make it an atmosphere where parents get to make the decisions in raising their kids and doing what they believe is right, and families can operate, businesses can prosper, and we believe Arkansas is the place to be. But we sure enjoy traveling to Hawaii whenever we get the chance.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, I've never been to Arkansas. It sounds like a great place.
You're going to have to come now.
Okay, I appreciate that. Come to Hawaii. I believe Hawaii's better, so if I could just have a friendly banter.
Absolutely.
I've read Bill Clinton's biography, Sarah Sanders or Huckabee's biography, and there's a unique story in kind of the blending of the two biographies about the transition between a Democrat governor to a Republican governor. So I'll retell the story, and then please correct any factoids I might misgive. So let's see. People were asking Bill Clinton if he could switch from being a governor to run for president. And people were asking him, and he wasn't giving a straight answer. And eventually, I think folks just read his biography to get the facts straight. But I think something to the effect of somebody who's pro-guns in Arkansas, knowing that Bill Clinton was a Democrat, more of a let's be kind of strict on guns, governor was thinking about running for president. He asked him, are you going to support guns or not as the next president? And then that kind of switched it in his mind as like, oh wow, this question is being framed as when I'm president, something to that effect. Please read the biography to get more details. And then he ran for president. Of course he won. That made a vacancy in the governorship of Arkansas. And then they had some sort of special election, I think, in Arkansas. And I think the lieutenant governor won, and then once he won, something fishy happened where he had to get kicked out. And then the legislator pressured him to step down. And so when he stepped down, there was another special election that was held, and that's where Mike Huckabee, the guy that's the host of the show, the guy who ran for president before That's where he ran for office. And there was this, I guess in his words, a miracle where Mike Huckabee was the somewhat successor of Bill Clinton's being the governor of Arkansas, because of, all of a sudden there's a vacant seat, lieutenant governor takes the seat, lieutenant governor gets kind of tangled in some ethics violations, there's a new election, and then lo and behold, we have this rare Republican governor now over a Democrat state, and that's Mike Huckabee. He runs twice, wins, and then of course everybody knows he ran for president in 2016. Donald Trump became the president. At the time, Sarah Huckabee joined the communications team, or the press secretary team. There was a unique situation where the press secretary had to get switched out, and so Trump saw Sarah do such a good job, he asked her to be the press secretary. She becomes the press secretary. Probably a lot of information that people in Hawaii maybe never knew or weren't maybe interested in, but to me it was fascinating. As a candidate running for office in Hawaii, I wanted to consume biographies of people who tried and worked, and they got elected. And so I wanted to learn from these folks. And could you just kind of speak into that portion of Arkansas history of how it switched from Democrat to Republican?
Well, I grew up in Colorado. No. I think it's a very good question, and there is a lot of interesting history in Arkansas, even going back to organized crime and Al Capone being able to walk down one side of the street in Hot Springs but not the other. Oh, wow. So there's a lot of really interesting history in Arkansas. I moved to Arkansas in 2002, and so I've been down there for a little over 20 years, and I don't remember the name of the governor who was indicted after Bill Clinton. So Bill Clinton ran for president, and at the same time he was running for president, that guy was running for governor. I think his name was Jim Guy Tucker. Okay. Jim Guy Tucker. And once he was elected governor, he was indicted and was forced to step down. And Mike Huckabee was lieutenant governor at the same time. So in Arkansas, the governor and lieutenant governor can run on they do run on different tickets. So Mike Huckabee was the lieutenant governor, so that made him governor when Jim Guy Tucker stuck. And if that name's wrong, don't crucify me. I don't. Trying to remember what I learned. But so yes, Mike Huckabee was elected governor, and I can only imagine being a Republican governor with a Democrat legislature. Mike Huckabee got some good things done, and I can only imagine the struggles that he went through with some of the compromises he had to make in order to, it took us, I believe, over 100 years to get in our society where we are culturally. And a lot of it happened because the left, and many people would say the devil, has no problem making incremental change. And as long as he's moving the ball in the direction he wants it to go, it's a win. So that's, you could talk about how Trump negotiates. He never asks for what he wants. He asks for way more than he wants.
That's the art of the deal.
and if he has to settle for a little bit less than what he asked for, he's still getting what he wants. And, many times in politics as conservatives, we want the farm now, right? We want 100% success every single time. And politics is the art of counting votes. It's the art of the possible. And so if you've got, one of the examples, Mike Huckabee got a very good abortion bill in Arkansas passed. But it had some exclusions in there. Well, he got it passed through a majority Democrat legislature. Wow. And a lot of conservatives came down on Huckabee for making those compromises. And, you asked the question, well, would you rather have had no bill at all? Mm-hmm. And so you talked about, the resolution that you were trying to get passed, not really going anywhere. And that's a real struggle. But, if you weren't there to set the example that you're setting, and to communicate with the people in your district, you wouldn't be going anywhere. So you take those small little steps, and like Huckabee had to when he was governor, and eventually you get, we could take this back a little farther. When the Pilgrims came over to America, they believed that they would not see prosperity and affluence, and they understood that it was basically their responsibility to lay down face first in the mud so that their kids and the generations following them could walk across their bodies so that they would be the ones that experienced political and economic prosperity. And many times we want results now, and the results may not come till after we're dead. You can look at John Quincy Adams and slavery. There's just many stories where the battles people fought during their lifetimes, they never saw the fruits of those battles, but they came after they were gone. And in Arkansas, yes, we've come a long way since Bill Clinton was governor, and we're excited now that we have Sarah Sanders as governor. She did a great job as press secretary, and Donald Trump recognized her leadership qualities in telling her she should run for governor, and she's doing a great job.
Well, that's awesome. Thanks for giving us the more clarified first-hand encounter experience of Arkansas. I appreciate that. I have forgotten a few things after the months since I've read her book and his book. Let's talk about Waipahu for a minute. That's one of the cities in my district, or I should say like cities in Oahu. So a guy emailed me and asked, can we please fix the parking on Waipahu Street? There's so many cars. People don't even live on this street, yet they're parking their car and walking a block away to go to their house. I'd like some more parking, Elijah. And so I followed up with him and with an email. This is like 6 months ago, and I asked the county of Honolulu, could we help with the parking situation on Waipahu Street? And they replied with a modeled solution in Kalihi, where basically if you have a house, like you pay property taxes, you can have, let's say, 2 stalls that you can rent out or like use metered parking on the street. Then they get priority to do that. If I'm getting the details wrong, I apologize. Please contact the City and County of Honolulu Department of Facility Maintenance and then ask to speak to the Roads Department if you want the correct facts. But anyway, that's working in Kalihi, and so I suggested to this resident in the Waipahu apartments, like near Kunia Palms, next to New Hope Milani, kind of near Don Quixote's. I said, hey, can this model in Kalihi work for you? And he's like, you know what? That sounds like it's really complicated. Let's just stick with what we got. Fast forward the clock 6 months later, he emailed me again while I'm out here in Dallas, and he said, the parking's terrible, Elijah. Please do something. And so I gave him the email I shared with him 6 months ago, and I said, how's this? Would this model work for you? And he said, like, basically at this point, anything's going to work. So emailed, I think it was last night or 2 nights ago, the same folks that I was in communication with the Department of Facility Maintenance, and they said, here's the email for this Waipahu resident to email to initiate the process. And if we get enough community input, we can start basically regulating the parking on Waipahu Street to where instead of everybody just doing a free-for-all, it's more of like assigned parking to residents who own property or are renting property from the owners. So that might be coming in the future for Waipahu. If you live in Ewa Beach in Ho'opili, I have an update for you on the left turn signal next to the rail, but that'll be in just a few moments. For right now, I've got a question with Mike McKee, the Senator of Arkansas. Tell us, what is one of the most unusual things you've experienced as a freshman legislator this year?
Oh boy. Most unusual things I've experienced. I can't really think of anything off the top of my head. We talked a little bit ago about how your elected representatives are just regular people. And one of the things that you realize as an elected official is that you will talk to a lot more people than you ever did before you were elected, right?
For sure.
And I think sometimes elected officials get a little bit jaded because they speak to and hear from so many people. They may not put as much emphasis or understanding into every single individual that they speak to, and so sometimes that can come across in an unfortunate way, and it's just something we all have to work on. I know that when you're speaking with someone, a constituent who's passionate about an issue, whether it be the parking on their street or the schools their children go to, that is the most important issue to them at that given time. And just like an employee at any business, an employee at a restaurant may see 100 or 200 customers in a day, but that customer is only going to see that one business employee. That's their one interaction with that. And so if that employee, whether it be a state legislator or a table server, is jaded or takes that interaction for granted, it can be a negative interaction. And so that's something that I came away from this last session with, is just doing my best to make sure I emphasize how important that communication is, and treating every constituent as if they're my only constituent.
Wow.
And that's a difficult task sometimes when you're dealing with so many different issues. But that, you meet so many interesting people when you're running for office, and then when you're elected. People that you represent, people that have owned and managed large companies, to the garbage man that takes out your trash. And if you don't know this, he's one of the most important guys in your city, right? Just imagine him not showing up for work for a couple weeks, and you realize how important those people are. And so that, I can't think of anything really interesting or unexpected, but that's one of the things that I came away with, is just how important those interactions are on a daily basis, and how we should never take them for granted.
Well, that's great. Thank you, Matt. It sounds like just being a genuine person is pretty valuable in being a legislator.
Absolutely.
Well, that's great.
Absolutely.
For those of you at the edge of your seat wondering what's happening next at that left turn intersection on Parkway Highway in Ewa Beach, I reached out to the the state of Hawaii, Department of Transportation, and basically said, hey, we've got a lot of residents in Ho'opili who would love to have a more common sense left turn right at that second rail station. And so thankfully they got back to me just this week and said that by May of 2024 they should have that resolved. So thank you, Department of Transportation. Just little Republican perspective on that. It's really just a painting of a line issue. So in my opinion, that could get knocked out in one weekend. But hey, if they're going to get it done in 6 months, thank you for ever getting it done versus never getting it done. So let's talk more about Arkansas. Do you guys have traffic in Arkansas?
We have traffic in Arkansas. Arkansas Arkansas is a gateway to many places, and unlike Hawaii, which everyone knows is a gem, Arkansas is a little bit of a hidden gem. And we call ourselves the natural state, and we have everything from diamond mines to caves to beautiful mountain vistas, many lakes that are public access and people can do all kinds of recreation on. We have a lot of traffic in Arkansas, and we have struggled over the years to have quality roadways. And there are a myriad of different reasons that people attribute that to. One being just basic political corruption, and the fact that a one-party system where there's no competition for ideas and for power leads to individuals in many cases who can basically just use the good old boy network and give their friends what their friends want, and the rest of the population can just take a hike. And so we've been working for the last several years on correcting those issues. But we do have traffic in Arkansas. We're blessed to have a beautiful state that is a lot of fun, a great place to visit and experience new things with your families. I don't know if you knew this, but Hot Springs, Arkansas, Hot Springs National Park was the very first national park in our country.
I thought it was Yosemite.
I don't think so. I think it was Hot Springs. We have beautiful natural hot springs where for many years people used to come to receive the healing powers of the natural hot springs. Wow. And so that's why we have an incredible old Army Navy hospital that was built there almost 100 years ago. But Bathhouse Row in Hot Springs is a great place to go and visit and learn about the history. We talked about organized crime. Baseball spring training used to be in Hot Springs, Arkansas. Wow. But there's only 4 million people in Arkansas, so it's a very small population compared to some states, not compared to Hawaii. But we love living in a rural state where we've got close proximity to nature, and it's a lot of fun, great place to raise a family. Great
place to raise a family. Speaking of families, we have a lot of families in Ho'opili, a neighborhood in Ewa Beach, and one of those residents, I'm not going to mention your name, you mentioned to me specifically, keep me anonymous, so I will honor you, ma'am. She basically said There's a lot of things that are going wrong in Hawaii. It takes forever to get a simple project done. Again, thank you, Department of Transportation. Maybe we could expedite that left turn repainting of the lines and not take 6 months. But she said maybe one of the ways we can speed up the process is firing people. And I'm in favor of firing people if they're not doing their job well. At the same time, give grace to people that are trying genuinely. But if there's a consistent pattern of failure, we've got to transition those people out and bring in people that want to do a better job, or I should say, will do a better job. And so in our county and our state levels, we have that problem maybe of people being there that aren't the best. I'm not going to name the department because the department head that used to be that head, he asked me to, many people I guess are wanting to be anonymous when they know me. So anonymous man number 2, he used to be a city and county department deputy director, and he told me the reason that the process was so slow in his specific department was that people were choosing to basically deny approvals for certain things when they could have given approvals. And so human nature, sin. And so, thankfully, as Senator Matt from Arkansas mentioned, the way we can improve systems is by having competition. So if I can help bring competition to the county and state of Hawaii, I'm all about that. And so just kind of following up with an anonymous email I received to somebody asking me to help with that problem. Yes, ma'am, I am on the job advocating for that. Let's go back to Senator Matt from Arkansas. What do you think is going to be happening in 2024 that's going to kind of surprise people or maybe raise some eyebrows?
Oh boy. What's going to go on in 2024? I think there's a lot of anxiety in the world, Elijah, and some of it surrounds international conflicts. Some of it surrounds national political races. Some of it surrounds social media and technology development, whether it be artificial intelligence or, as we were talking about earlier in our conference, central bank digital currency, and the ways that, whether it be the technology companies or our government, are looking for ways always where they can know more about us than we know about ourselves, and influence how we live our lives based on those economies. And so the number one thing I tell people when they get excited about things or they get worried and exercised over things is, number one, we know how the story ends, but famous football coach Lou Holtz always just do the next right thing. And I know that there will probably be October surprises in the elections, and there will be wars and rumors of wars, but there are parts of our lives that we can control, and there are parts that we can't. And so the important thing is to do the right thing in those parts that we can control, and pray about the rest. Because there's always going to be those things that are, I think the news today that we consume is not about informing us. Yeah, it's about telling us what to think, and it's about, I think a lot of it is meant to excite us emotionally. And unfortunately, I think there's a lot of people that watch the news at night and they get so exercised and worn out emotionally that they go to bed feeling like they've done something. And they haven't. They haven't. And unfortunately, they're misinformed many times by what they watch. And so we've got to do a better job of gleaning where we get our information, and just make sure that the things that we're worrying about are things that we can do something about. Because otherwise, it's just like sitting in a rocking chair. There's a lot of motion, but you're not going anywhere.
That's right. Speaking of not going anywhere, I have a person in my life. This person often tells me, Elijah, this bad thing just happened. This bad thing just happened. And I just said, okay, wait a minute. Let's take it back to Philippians 4. Is this of noble, good report? Is this going to have good cheer? Is this trustworthy? And then they'll pause and say, well, let's pray about it. So maybe that's that person's excuse to still talk about it.
You're a good reminder.
But let's pray about the bad stuff going on in the county of Honolulu, in the state of Hawaii, especially what's going on in Maui. And let's pray about all of America. Let's pray for the world. Let's not just be the consumers of bad data, but let's be the emoters of prayer. So we've only got about 6 minutes left in the show. And if you're listening to this episode, know that I'm cold in Dallas. I'm coming back to Hawaii soon, and I didn't bring enough clothes because I am cold out here as we're filming, or I should say recording this episode on the hotel patio. I'm at the pro-family legislators network, and I met this amazing guy named Senator Matt McKee. He's from Arkansas, and he's pro-biblical gender. He's basically conservative. This guy is amazing, and he's got a really cool story about how Arkansas went from mostly Democrat to mostly Republican. So in the last 6 minutes of our show, can you kind of teach us, the people of Hawaii, how can we not just be thinking conservative values as most of our state residents do, but how can we start, making it change policy?
Elijah, I appreciate that, and you've been very gracious to sit here and talk to me for an hour. Sometimes I wonder if I have all that much that's interesting to say, but I've enjoyed this, and I've really enjoyed getting to know you. As conservatives, many times we're individualists. We take responsibility for our lives, we take responsibility for our families, we take responsibility for our business, for providing for ourselves, and then when we go into politics, we take that hat, if you were, with us. And unfortunately, politics is a team sport, and so we've got to get better at taking off the individual hat and putting on the team hat, the team player hat, because we don't live in a dictatorship, and if we did, it probably wouldn't be me, right? So people don't do things the way I think they should all the time. But as a conservative, I've got to be very good, and I've got to learn how to communicate the values that I hold dear and the principles that I use in my life, and how those benefit the people that I represent. And we're never going to agree on everything, but as conservatives, we've got to get better at communicating. And one of the ways we communicate is just by building relationships. And so when people get to know you, they get to know your heart, they get to know your motivations, they're a lot more likely to exhibit a little bit of trust when they don't necessarily agree or understand the direction that you're going in. And so that's one thing that we can do for our legislators. That's one thing that these listeners can do for you, Elijah, is if they don't understand something that they hear that you've done in the legislature, is to call you up and to not even necessarily give you the benefit of the doubt, but give you the opportunity to explain, you've taken your time and resources and you've invested that time to learn the issues and to find the facts and then to make a good decision for the people you represent. And so if you don't understand something Elijah's doing, give him a call, because there's a very good chance he knows something that you don't know. And if you know something he doesn't know, I promise you he wants to know it, right? And so, but as conservatives, we've just got to get better at communicating with folks, because we really do believe that limited government and allowing individuals to make the decisions regarding their businesses and families and the raising of their children are best made by parents. They're best made by the people that those decisions affect. And so limited government is good for people, and when we implement those policies, we want people to thrive. And so if we can communicate those principles, you'll see a lot more success. And I think that that's one thing we were successful in Arkansas in doing was, coming from a time where all the Republicans in Arkansas could fit in a phone booth to now where everybody wants to be a Republican because you literally can't win as a Democrat in most districts in Arkansas. It was a matter of communicating those principles and having a little bit of success as those policies are implemented, so that people can see the difference in top-down control versus an emphasis on individual rights. And so I appreciate you giving me this opportunity. It's been fun, and I'm looking forward to working with you in the future.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Senator Matt McKee from Arkansas. Folks, for the past 53 minutes, you've been listening to your state representative, Elijah Pierick, coming to you from a pre-recording at a conference in Dallas, Texas. It's cold out here. I'm looking forward to going back to the warmth of Oahu. Do you think that there is litter on H1? I think there is. So please volunteer. Adopt a highway on H1, specifically, like if you're going westbound near Waikele Shopping Center, please just ask the appropriate folks in the Department of Transportation if you can pull over on the side of the road and pick up some litter. That'd be awesome. It would make our community look better. Also, if you want to get involved with the legislator, you can start submitting testimony as early as January when we kick things up again. We're probably going to have about less than 3,000 bills flowing through the legislature, and sadly, you guys know how Hawaii is. There's going to be a bunch of bad bills that are going to really, I think, screw over the people of Hawaii. So we want to stop that, and you can help stop that by submitting your testimony saying, please don't hurt us. And I'm going to be fighting for you at the legislature by voting no a lot against bad bills. So tune in every Monday from 5 to 6 p.m. to hear yours truly, Elijah Pierick, giving you updates on what's going on in Hawaii. Aloha, God bless. This is 690 AM, 94.3 FM. The Answer, aloha.